holograms and fellow Trekkies. My name is Aeon Abraxas, and welcome to part 7 of my Star Trek Antagonists tier list. Last video, we covered the Kelvin timeline films, and this is our current ranking of all the antagonists we've seen for. S is very heavy, A is right behind it, B is pretty light, C, and D. Again, I don't do an F tier because I feel like D is enough of a you don't need that extra tier. I love systems of 5s. It's a nice even way of ranking things. Anyway, so starters, let's get the thanks out of the way by my friend Night Halcyon for paying me to do these videos. Again, this isn't a sponsored video. This is a friend of mine who literally paid me to give my, as they put it, hot takes on the Star Trek antagonists of the mythos of Star Trek. So I picked out a list of 70 antagonists throughout all of Star Trek. I tried to do 60, but I couldn't quite narrow it down that much. So I have 70. Rules of the tier list are it is based off a character, not race or species. It is specifically the character. They are shuffled. They're not shuffled into the rank. Once they're put there in order as I put them. We're not nitpicking it all that much. I feel like that's the only rules that I had. And also, again, this, as it goes without saying, strictly my opinion. By all means, get in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. I've actually heard from the Deep Space Nine video, a lot of you are not happy where I put Weyoun, but that's just fine. Again, my opinion. Some of you made some pretty great arguments for Weyoun, so I see you out there. I hear you. I never really considered some of these points of view, but again, this is just my personal opinion. So I'm not changing it after the fact. This video is specifically going to target all of New Trek. I'm not doing it based off series because, to be blunt, I struggled a lot after we crossed out of the Kelvin timeline and into... I don't like calling it New Trek, but a 21st century Trek, post-Enterprise, post-Kelvin timeline. The first two seasons of Discovery were pretty easy to narrow down. After that, it got a little harder. Picard was pretty easy, again, only being 3 seasons. I was able to pick out the antagonists / villains there. Actually, Picards were pretty much villains, so they were easier. But Lower Decks, I had a feeling who I knew I wanted, and then Prodigy, of course, that only had, we'll get to it. But some of you might notice we don't have Strange New Worlds representing this list because I don't know why. I don't know why all of these antagonists / villains have stood out to me, where I struggled. I struggled very much to... I even had to look up their names because they didn't stick out. I'm sure somebody might point out I don't have a Discovery season 3. I had her name. Orissa? The Orion, head of the Emerald Chain from season 3. I legitimately forgot her name and forgot she existed. I knew there was a character, and I remembered it was an Orion woman. That was it. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was the shorter seasons that made it harder to pick out the 5-season antagonists or whatnot, because as we get into these shows, the episodes were limited. The production time was longer. And as much as I've seen all these other Treks, I haven't really gone back and watched them. Like, if I was doing a watch through, I tend to do it chronologically. Never got to Discovery. In first season, still hard to get through. I've watched season 1 of Discovery at least twice. The first initial time, and then when I watched it again to prepare for season 2. But yeah, So yeah, I know I might get some flack in this video, which is fine. As long as we keep it civil, we're okay. But again, this was a harder video to do, so bear with me. I as you might notice, I've got tabs open here to help me with names, but I do remember once I know the names, it's like, okay, I remember the characters. Anyway, so let's get the ball rolling with our first antagonist from the first new show since 2005, Star Trek Discovery, Captain Gabriel Lorca. He stands out to me. Beautifully played by Jason Isaacs. Initially, his first appearance is very mysterious. He's shadowed in darkness, reveals the light slowly, claims he has something wrong with his eyes from a war injury, and he captains Discovery like a warship, even though it is a vessel it's a science vessel. But it has the spore drive, and he uses it, essentially tries to wield it as a weapon. What sets him apart from captains before is his trophy room, which immediately upon seeing it, I immediately was like, something, there's something there. Something's not right. Because it's weapons, skeletons, just like it is a warrior or hunter's trophy room, which seems odd for a Starfleet captain. But again, we're like, okay, let's just see where it goes. Turns out he was a Terran from the Mirror universe. Surprise! Where we find out Terrans apparently don't like light. They very weak to light. Their vision's weak to light. Sure, okay. Where it turns out he was trying to usurp the Emperor Philippa Georgiou. And he had teamed up with the Mirror Michael Burnham, who disappeared, and very nearly killed the Emperor, but was saved by the Emperor was saved by our Prime Universe Michael, and very much he died. He was stabbed through the chest and then fell into space into dark matter, and his body just disintegrated. So how do I rank him as a villain? So just by going over the character, he was the first new he was the second new captain, because Prime Universe Philippa Georgiou was the first new captain we got. And then she met her end. We had Captain Gabriel Lorca of Discovery. It was interesting watching this character because he very much would sometimes be a little dismissive of the scientific things. He wanted things done in a timely manner, so he kind of was very hard. But again, this was during a war, so we kind of were like, okay. And he had lost a ship beforehand. We were just kind of watching, but his callousness at the loss of his head of security was a little kind of like, okay. And then when it's revealed he is a Terran who, as Mirror Philippa put it, groomed Mirror Michael, which, ew, very much was very, it just, he was a brilliant tactician. He had the loyalty of his followers, but I don't know. It very much, again, the whole twist goes to the writing of Discovery, so I'm trying not to look at it, because when it happened, it kind of was like, huh, yeah, that makes sense. It wasn't, it was very much just, huh, yeah, that makes sense. Well, I legit thought we were getting a darker, grittier Starfleet captain for the war, and turns out, nah, he's just a Terran. And it's like, yeah, okay, it makes sense. So where do I rank Lorca as an antagonist? Honestly, I feel like I'm going to give him an A, because he's wonderfully acted by Jason Isaacs. I do feel like he's written well. His legacy is lasting. For season 2, Captain Pike pretty much had to come out and say, I'm not Lorca. And so the impact he had on the crew was lasting. And I do enjoy him as a character to a point. I don't feel like he goes up to S tier. We never do meet Prime Lorca outside of expanded media, which is a real shame. I would have loved before the cancellation to have seen Prime Lorca in some aspect or learn what he was like outside of just hearsay, but we never got that chance. So yeah, I do feel like Gabriel Lorca gets an A rank, just because the first antagonist we get, or villain, he's a villain. We're not going to sugarcoat it. He gets an A rank. I do feel like we come out the gate swinging. And next up, we have the secondary antagonist of season 1, for the first half of season 1 of Discovery. The Klingon Cole was one of the first Klingons to arrive at the Battle of Binary Stars at T'Kuvma's lighting of the beacon of Kalis. He commandeers the sarcophagus ship, which had been stranded there after the battle, bribes the crew with food, strands the loyal Klingon Volk on the Shensho to die, and essentially takes the sarcophagus ship and just wreaks havoc on the Federation during this Klingon war. We see him twice. The initial, where he takes command, and then at the Battle of Pavo, where the Discovery finally ends up defeating him. But because this is a new era of Trek, we get to see a new era of new Klingons for this era. These Klingons are, like we saw in the first season, darker, grittier, more menacing, I want to say. It's revealed that before the battle takes place, Michael confronts him aboard the sarcophagus ship. He's literally using Philippa Georgiou's badge as a toothpick, and it's strongly hinted at, if not confirmed, they ate her remains for food, which again just shows how darker these Klingons are. It's never been hinted. I don't know if that qualifies as cannibalism, because the Klingons aren't eating other Klingons. I'm not sure how that qualifies, but it was very jarring. Which was why he made the list, because it's very much like he was the first Klingon foe. Y'all can argue T'Kuvma technically was. T'Kuvma didn't make it out of the pilot. Cole did. So he's the one that made it, okay? That's where I stand on this. So where do I stand on Cole as a villain? I feel like I need to give him a B rank, because he's similar to Duras in that honor means nothing to him. It seems to have little or any impact on him. He cares more about power. He cared more about the cloaking field that the sarcophagus ship granted him and his allies. And his impact kind of faded after season 1. So, like, yeah, he definitely belongs in B, because he was there, he caused havoc, and then died. But he was memorable. I do remember him. He was a menace. So I gotta give him a B rank for sure. I feel like he earned it. Next up, season 2's primary antagonist, Leland from Section 31 / Control. I'm going to count them as one just because of how the plot plays out. So he was part, if not head, of Section 31 during the season 2 of Discovery. He initially is on the hunt for Spock, who escaped the hospital that Spock was staying in, a mental hospital, where after a mind meld of the Red Angel, Section 31 wanted to know more about the Red Angel, thinking it was a threat. We're checking out all these, Discovery, and now Section 31 in a race to figure out the mystery of the Red Angel, the red signals. And we later find out that Control, the AI that gives the directives to Section 31 using an algorithm, gains sentience and wipes out all organic life in the far future after gaining the sphere data that Discovery picks up. Leland is taken over by these nanobots, nanomachines, in a way that is very Borg-esque. And essentially becomes a control fight for the sphere data. Yeah. Look, I'm just going to say it. The introduction to Section 31 with Discovery, where it was not a secret organization. It was just a branch of Starfleet intelligence. Admirals knew about it. Captains knew about it. They didn't try to be secretive about it, which, sure, okay. They had their own badges, which, again, is like, you're supposed to be a super secret. Anyway, moving on. The main antagonist of season 2 turned out to be a rogue AI that was an off-brand Borg. I even think they had a resistance is futile. I can't remember it. I can't for the life of me. I think they did. But I legitimately hated it because I still remember the one con the showrunners at the time were at. Not Alex Kurtzman. There was 2 showrunners I remember that were fired for creating a toxic workplace. Anyway, that might be fake news, but I apologize if I was wrong about that. But they wanted to. I remember them saying they wanted to try and find a way to bring the Borg in, and this is how they did it: was a off-brand. It was an AI that had Borg-like tendencies, and I'm just going to say it. That sucked. I hated it. I hated the idea of control. Because the thing is, I think even like in the expanded universe, they had already done that. Section 31 had an AI called Control in the 24th century. I don't know if they read that and then took it, but Leland himself was a very Sloan character, which fit within Section 31. The ends justify the means. We're doing what Starfleet can't. Just let us do what we want, and everything will be fine. He even helped out Discovery at a certain point. So I mean, I feel like not assimilation. Not that. Takeover, replacement, however you want to put it. Not assimilation. I refuse. He felt like he was a decent guy working on the same team. He was just very pragmatic. I think that's the word I want to use. Pragmatic. So Leland himself wasn't a bad guy. I feel like he was just a solid attempt to return as an antagonist. But then when Control took over, villain. Just because Control takes over and we get that, I'm putting him in C. Like, I like Leland as a character, but man, when Control enters the picture or we find out what Control is all about, tanks. Like, I almost want to put it in D, but Leland saves it. I feel like Leland's a decent enough character, but the whole off-brand Borg concept just, I hate it. I hate it. I do. I really genuinely do. Because it's very much like, okay, this is the direction you went with, huh? Okay. Sure. Okay. Fine. Anyway, I'm going to try and move through these as quick as possible, while still also justifying my reasonings. Next up, we have Ruan Tarka. Federation scientist, Rycian scientist, which was unique in Star Trek. We had never really met any Rycians off of planet Risa, the shore leave vacation planet. Was captured by the Emerald Chain. He worked with someone who they were trying to develop alternate technologies during the alternate propulsion technologies post burn in the 32nd century, and he and his cohort, his partner, trying to create an interdimensional transporter. He was able to escape. Didn't get to that alternate dimension, but he swore he'd come back for his partner. Jump to where we meet him in Discovery. He is working on replicating the spore drive, and he's working on it, but they can't figure out the whole pilot issue. Right now, we only have 2 pilots, Stamets and Booker are the only ones who can use the spore drive. He's trying to replicate it. This, of course, comes out during the whole DMA crisis and Species 10C, where this massive dark matter anomaly is wreaking havoc. He wants to use explosives in a way to counteract it. He's shot down, thinking that Starfleet thinks that we're messing with a species that created this anomaly. Do we really think we want to piss them off? He goes rogue. Steals his prototype. Book joins him, and they just try to reach 10C to destroy the device that's creating the anomalies. He uses interdimensional transporter at the end. We don't know if he succeeds. His fate is left unknown. And I don't think when I could look back at this character, he's not a villain. I don't think he qualifies as a villain. He qualifies as an antagonist for sure, but not as a villain. He's very pragmatic again, like Leland is, in that we don't know who 10C are. We don't know. They obviously are doing this, and they need to be stopped. And he's like, let's just, blow it up. Is it the right method? No, but he's driven in his research in an attempt to see his friend again. And I do believe he wants to help better people as a scientist. But again, he goes about it the wrong way. I do like Tarka as a character. I did like Tarka as a character. And I do believe, I think he goes up here with B and the antagonist. He's not, he's not a villain. He's not a villain. He is an antagonist, which I do believe that kind of elevates the character a bit. It's just, he went about it the wrong way. And because of the short season, everything kind of was rushed because we didn't meet him until episode 5 of Discovery's 4th season. So his backstory was rushed, and it's literally him, like, he's trying his best not to kill anybody, I believe. And again, I'm going to rewatch, or somebody's going to point out in the comments that, oh no, he definitely killed people. And it's like, again, I'm trying here, folks. I should have done more proper research, but again, it was very much just, I'm going off of memory. And some of these people do stick out more than others. So that goes to show the impact they had. But I do remember Tarka, and I feel like as a likable character, he goes B. Not quite A, because he's not a villain. He didn't quite make the antagonist. I feel like his drive keeps him in B as a character. He's a good antagonist, but he's not A or S tier. Next up, we have Mole from season 5. Her and her husband, Locke, are running from the Breen. They're attempting to essentially pay off Locke's blood debt from the Breen, and they stumble into the whole galaxy-wide treasure hunt for the progenitor technology. She is very driven. She's a former courier. Again, I don't think she qualifies as a villain. Definitely an antagonist. She wants to use the progenitor technology to help pay off the debt, which, honorable. She doesn't really care how she goes about it. When she gains power, like when her husband dies, she takes his spot as head of the sect of the Breen Confederacy. Or is it Imperium? I forget how it's addressed in the 32nd century. Again, a lot of this stuff I watched once, and some of it stuck, some of it didn't. Is able to, almost comes close to succeeding, and she's arrested, but Povich pretty much hints that I could use someone like her with her talents. I feel like as a character, I gotta give her A. Like, the more I think about what she accomplished, the more her drive and the love for her husband. Seriously, like, it very much was. She cared deeply for him. I feel definitely she is an A rank antagonist. Absolutely. How she wanted to then use the progenitor technology to bring him back to life, which I believe there was no evidence to that, but that didn't stop her from trying. And I gotta say, just as a character alone, I feel like she is an A-rank character. 100%. Might be a little bit of a controversy, but season 4, season 5 of Discovery, to me, oh, so good. So good, and gave us a lot of good characters and a lot of good plots. But again, Paramount being Paramount, decided to cut it short, which it is what it is. I hate to say it, but Discovery, I think, was starting to reach its peak in season 3, and here we are. I also hope I said her name right. It's spelled M-O-L-L, so Mole. Again, been forever since I heard pronunciation. Anyway, that leaves Discovery. We are now moving on to Star Trek Picard. Personally, one of my favorites. Just again, seeing Sir Patrick Stewart back in the role of Captain Picard, now Admiral Picard. And the 3 seasons we got, I have my issues with it, but I enjoyed, as a next gen fanboy, I enjoyed watching Star Trek Picard. So first up is the Romulan Narissa. I think I'm saying her name right. Hope so. Her and her brother were in charge of the Borg Reclamation Project off of a severely damaged Borg cube. She was also part of a secret organization, more secret than the Tal Shiar. Oh God, I can't remember it. Anyway, I can at least describe it. They feared synth technology. They all shared this dark memory of an alternate future where synth technology or synthetic life forms overran, and which seemed to be a running plot in New Trek. I'm just now pointing that together. It's like, that is a thing. It was either an alternate timeline, alternate dimension. I believe it was supposed to be an alternate future, but again, it's kind of weird that Discovery did it, then Picard did it, and anyway, we're not going to get into that. So she is part of the new line of villains that is vying for Kai Wynn's love to hate role. She is vile. She does not like the XBs. She makes it blunt, like plain. She infiltrated Starfleet with her boss, Commander O. The only reason that Commodore O didn't make that list is because we got more of Narissa than O. So, plus also, again, she showed up more and she did a lot more vile things. She is responsible for the death of Hugh, which I take quite affront to. I loved Hugh, and she killed him in cold blood. Not a fan. And she meets her end by 7 of 9 just Spartan kicking her over a pit, and she dies screaming, falling, and it was so satisfying to watch. I'm not even gonna lie. It was satisfying. So you could kind of you got the fear that these Romulans shared that were part of this organization of synthetic life. And like, I understand that. As an anti-clanker myself, I very much am against AI, but the synthetics shown in Star Trek more or less are not that. They're genuine life forms that each have their own personality. So I do feel like they're quick to judge. Where do I rank her as a villain? I feel like I gotta give her, man. I think it's B. Like, she's not A tier because we don't know a lot about. I don't. No. You know what? I feel like I'm misjudging. No, the more I think about it, I do feel like she reaches A. Just because she wants to protect her family. Her aunt was driven insane by the knowledge that she was given of the alternate future or potential future. She goes to great lengths to ensure their victory, that their mission succeeds. She even opens up disables force fields to wipe out a bunch of random XBs when Seven takes control of the cube. She doesn't care. She's committed to her cause. And her drive. I feel like she's an A-rank villain. Again, one of those characters I love to hate. Because yeah, I don't like her at all as a character. In terms of like Kai Wynn level of like, what are you going to do now that's making me going to watch you be defeated and just be so satisfied? And then when she dies, it is so satisfying. So I feel like from start to finish, her whole arc, A rank, not S tier, not S tier. A rank though, I'll give it to her. I'll give her A rank. I enjoyed watching that. Next up, Adam Soon. Get another Soon! Star Trek Picard heavily used Brent Spiner throughout its 3-season run. We got the primary antagonist of season 2, Adam Soon, when the crew traveled back to the 21st century. And we learned that he was a geneticist trying to perfect cloning. You know, I can't recall exactly what he was trying to perfect. He was a geneticist, which kept into continuity the Soons beforehand, before Eric Soon shifted gears to robotics, were geneticists. And he had a daughter that apparently he bioengineered. Okay. He was very intelligent, was looking for funding. The government shut him down. So he did a lot of things privately. Turns out that if the mission to Europa was unsuccessful, that in this alternate timeline we saw in Star Trek Picard, he led Earth into essentially Terra Prime's wet dream, where humanity went out as conquerors and just formed the Confederacy of Planets. Where, yeah, we didn't give a shit. We took everything, like Paxton said, with human hands and human souls. And he had a whole statue erected in his honor. Of course, he meets his defeat at the end of season 2, but like his daughter abandons him. His lab's fried. Got into bed with the wrong people, like even teamed up with the Borg Queen at that timeline, of the alternate timeline. But that whole thing didn't pan out for him either. But at the end, we see that he is essentially the mastermind, or what helps set up the eugenics wars. He pulls out a folder marked Project Khan. So the fact that he kickstarts one of the most important moments in Star Trek history, the eugenics wars, and helps create the S tier villain, I feel like, again, a scientist with no scruples, doesn't care, almost kills. Like, he's willing to kill to further his goals. I feel like he's got to go A. Just because, like, I love watching. Like, this was a darker Soon than we've ever seen. Almost on par with Lore, but he's human. And the fact that he didn't care what he had to do for his children. He didn't care who he hurt. And the fact that we saw what happens when he succeeds, is terrifying. I feel like I gotta give him an A rank. As roughest season 2 was of Picard, I do feel like Adam Soon was a highlight. Okay, next up, we've got from season 3, Vadic, the Changeling, who played beautifully by Amanda Plummer, Christopher Plummer. Oh God, I hate words. I really do. I don't know why my brain works like that. Anyway, she was a changeling that could perfectly mimic solid life forms. She and 9 other changelings were brutally experimented on by Section 31, given the ability to perfectly mimic. They were a lot more... They were very close to organic, but were able, like, they could perfectly mimic blood, organs. You couldn't tell they were shapeshifters. They were intended to be Federation spies used by Section 31. Well, she got out and freed her 9 other brothers and sisters, and essentially, not sure what they did in the interim, but we find out that she's after Jack Crusher. Apparently these changelings are working with the Borg Queen. Don't look into that. Don't read into that. Still have some problems with like how all that paired up, but she was after Jack Crusher, who had apparently a link to the Collective. And just watching her is wonderful. I think she is a great villain. She's purely motivated by vengeance, and she hates solid life, but she's witty. She's charismatic. She doesn't care who she hurts. I genuinely feel like Vadic as a villain is another A-tier villain for sure. Just because, like, I love watching her. Every scene she's in, I just am like, oh, this is fun. She meets her end by being blown out of the bridge, where she solidifies and crashes against her ship into a million pieces in space. And it's very, like, satisfying watching her defeated and in that manner. But throughout the whole of the 3rd season of Picard, I enjoyed watching her as a villain. I loved having her as a villain. Okay, next up, we've got the Borg Queen introduced at the end of season 3 of Picard. Now, we're led to believe this is similar to the same Borg Queen that was in Endgame. She is different than the one we saw in season 2, which was from an alternate future, and essentially is good because she had merged with Agnes in this new Borg, totally separate. Which is why I didn't think she qualified as an antagonist. It was... say they were kind of an antagonist, but I felt like Adam was a stronger presence there. Even though the Borg Queen from season 2 and Agnes and what they became was wonderful, watching all that was great. I just felt like Adam Soon was just measured up a little higher. Again, come for me in the comments. Anywho, so we have this Borg Queen that is sick. Apparently, she doesn't care. She's hiding out in Jupiter, using transporters to assimilate children, or I guess the young of Starfleet. Nearly succeeds. Uses Jack as like a beacon to amplify all of this. Somehow managed to work with the changelings, which again, they had a grudge against Starfleet. So maybe it wasn't that hard to believe. But this was the end of the Borg, and I look at this Borg Queen, and I want to say they're the same person as B, but this one felt a little bit more... I don't know how to put it. I don't know. I wasn't too impressed. After watching season 2 and seeing that Borg Queen and Agnes, and then season 3 happens and we get this Borg, I very much was like, I just was like, I didn't care. Is how I could put it. So yeah, it was just like, It's fine. Whatever. I didn't care. Like, I liked the Borg Queen we'd seen before more, and I know there's like supposed to be the one and the same. I just felt like, no, there's just I could have used that slot probably for another character, but for some reason I was like, no, I feel like with season 3, you have Vatic, but you also have the Borg Queen, which again, maybe I'm wrong in thinking there's a slight difference. Tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. Next up, we're in Lower Decks now. And as you probably could tell, I'm a fan of Lower Decks. My God, did I love the animated Trek we got. Lower Decks and Prodigy both. Oh, they're so good. I'm just going to say it. I know a lot of my friends, again, I triggered them with this, but Lower Decks to me, a love letter to 80s and 90s era of Trek, was beautifully done, and we got some great characters out of it. The first antagonist we're going to talk about is Badgie, the wonderful helper that also has murderous tendencies. I love Badgie. Badgie's fun. He's just, I'm here to help you and slaughter you. I love Badgie. When we first meet him, like, he chases Rutherford and Tendi through the holodeck, just wanting to kill him. He's slaughtering a bunch of holographic villagers just on a whim, but it's so enjoyable to watch. When we meet him again, he has been salvaged and taken control of a ship. I can't remember the race or species. Takes control, ties into them, and wants to essentially ascend to godhood. He splits off his personalities. We get Goodgy and Logicy, representing the good parts of Badgie and the logic part of Badgie. And then Badgie essentially succeeds. He ties in and is tied into every warp core. I can make every warp core explode. And then, why would I do that? What is the purpose of it? He gains omnipotence, and suddenly he's questioning his whole purpose, and he ascends to the koala. Which, God, that's such a sentence to say, unless you know Lower Decks. But he ascends to a higher form of being, and I love Badgie. I love him as a villain because he is pure anarchy. He's pure anarchy, and he just doesn't care. He's so fun to watch. Yep, I don't even care. S-rank. I know it's gonna stir up some fires, but man, I love Badgie. I love Badgie. Badgie's fun. He was fun to watch, and just because he started off as like he wanted to be a holographic helper, like Clippy, which we were all annoyed. And admittedly, when I first saw him, I was like, oh God, why? But I understand the purpose. And then as soon as he started revealing his murderous tendencies, I was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna love this character. And I did and do. Even in Star Trek Online, you can unlock him to be a combat pet. So I have him. I could summon him, and he'll run up and start stabbing enemies. It's no. Again, that doesn't reflect this. It reflects what we see on screen, and I love Badgie. I just do. It's pure glee every time he was on screen. Next up, the Exocomp Peanut Hamper. He chose their name. She chose her name because the two most pleasant sounding. I think it was the two most pleasant sounding English words or standard words. Peanut Hamper started out the end of season 1 as an ensign, was just being shown around, and then it was revealed that she joined up Starfleet to piss off her dad. Parental issues. Okay, I can empathize with that. She beams off the Cerritos to space because she could survive, and just floats for a few seasons, comes back, crash lands on a planet of avian species, has possibly one of the most disturbing scenes in Star Trek I'd ever seen, where her and her lover, that was a thing. Yep. One of the reasons why it sticks out, because it very much was just like, wow, okay, that happened. Turns out just took them for a ride. As a means to get off the planet. She didn't care. She just callously does not care, only about herself. The Cerritos picks her up. She is locked away in the storage in the Daystrom Institute for malicious malware or malicious. I call it malware. I know it has a name, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. She ends up softening up, being, isn't so like take over the world, universe, or whatnot by the end. But as a character, as an antagonist, she's a B. I'm not gonna rank her any higher than a B. She's fun to watch, and like just everything she went through, she didn't care at all. It was just like, I'm just trying to piss off my dad. She was intelligent. She was manipulative. She's a great antagonist. She's a great antagonist / villain. I feel like villain might be too strong a word, but like it was just, again, when her few episodes, she was fun to watch. But like a character, I feel like she's a good character. Not great, but again, I love it. She was a fun character to watch for sure. Next up, Season 4 antagonist, Nicholas Locarno. First seen in TNG as an Academy pilot, ace pilot in charge of Nova Squadron. He's a part of a cover-up attempting to, after a fellow cadet dies in a very dangerous maneuver, he attempts to cover it up. Wesley steps forward, reveals what they did. He is kicked out of the Academy. Goes into civilian life as a pilot. Eventually becomes disillusioned, or at the time of Lower Decks, just flips and starts up. He designs his own ship and starts up attacking random vessels from Starfleet, Ferengi, Romulan, disabling the ships and capturing the crew and giving them to the lower deck officers. Puts the command crew essentially on a planet where they fight to survive. He doesn't kill them, but he puts them on a planet to fend for themselves in an attempt to start his own Nova fleet without the bureaucratic red tape of Starfleet and the Federation. He does this all in an attempt to embarrass Starfleet that drummed him out. He uses a acquired Genesis device as a defense. So it shows that he was definitely not bluffing. Mariner defeats him. He tries to disarm the Genesis device from going off, is unsuccessful, and it blows up. I feel like as a character and what drives him, like, it's very relatable as somebody who was pushed too far and had his dreams crushed. And I feel like just, again, he Mariner tried to call him out saying he wasn't a killer, and he's like, very much I am. You just watch. So I do feel like he's an A character. I do like Nick Locarno as a character, as an antagonist, as a villain, because again, he very nearly succeeded. He captured quite a few ships from all over. So he's technologically brilliant. He was motivational because all these people were working together. Like, he got all these species to work together. It was quite impressive, to say the least. So, yeah, I give him an A rank. All right, last but not least, we have the two antagonists from Star Trek Prodigy. We have the Diviner, who was running a prison camp of random species in the Delta Quadrant, trying to find the USS Protostar. He was from the future, where his race had made contact, his species made contact with Starfleet, but that first contact split the planet into civil war, ruining the planet. So him and a select few traveled back in time to essentially stop it, maybe even undo the Federation entirely. He was sent back farther than he originally planned and had an offspring, Gwen. And he very much cared for his daughter. It's very clear he does. but he was very driven in his goal to stop the protostar. He nearly succeeds. He gains control of it and almost gets the protostar to where like they're able to attack Starfleet. He ends up dying at the hands of Essentia, the other member of his species that traveled back, who wasn't quite as long there as he was, so she was a bit more harder. But the Diviner, absolutely, in terms of a villain, I feel like is A rank. Just because, again, single-minded, didn't care. Like, I didn't care what he had to do, but he cared deeply his daughter. At one point, he loses his memory, and when it starts coming back, you start to see the gears start. But again, he ends up sacrificing himself for his daughter. And truly, I can't help but give him an A rank just because, again, you see your whole planet decimated. You're one of the few remaining species. You're one of the few remaining members of your species. You're going to help, right? And the only reason I'm talking about when Gwen, in the second season, when Gwen travels to the planet and meets her father, who hasn't had her yet, in a way, he's not a villain there at all. I'm only counting his moment as the Diviner. And it very much, as a villain, he's an A rank, 100%. Now, Essentia, on the other hand, makes the Diviner look like a wimp. She infiltrates Starfleet. She's on board Admiral Janeway's ship, the Dauntless, and reveals herself, escapes, like sets up the protostar on its mission to attack Starfleet, disables Starfleet after the Codex, I think it's the construct starts infiltrating Starfleet computers. They start the ships start attacking each other. It's very brutal, but it's able to be stopped after the protostar is destroyed. And we learn in season 2, she travels to their homeworld in an attempt to sway things. This is where things get extremely complicated because a lot of time travel is involved. She doesn't care that she's wreaking havoc through history, that the essentially reality is slipping. She doesn't care. She's eventually defeated by her younger self, who's like, "You're insane. I will never become this." So rather than blipping out of existence, she apparently stabilizes because it's an alternate future. There's a link, again, to that. It's like a wormhole in a way. It's complicated to say the least. I love Prodigy, but sometimes I very much was trying to follow the techno babble. It's sometimes hard to keep straight. But she's captured, apprehended, taken into custody. I feel like a villain in her ruthlessness, her single-mindedness to protect her planet from Starfleet, which blinds her to what she's doing. I feel like puts her in the upper echelons of Star Trek villains. I feel like she is S tier. I feel like she's S tier. I'm going to say it. I definitely feel like she stands in the upper echelons of Star Trek villains in that she did not care who she hurt. She knew that she just had to protect her people. And if it meant undoing reality in itself, it didn't care. So that concludes Star Trek Antagonist tier lists. I know I'm probably going to face some backlash because when it came to the streaming, maybe the streaming Trek is what it should be called because they were all in streaming services. The seasons weren't as long. And granted, some of these villains that are like S tier, A tier, only were in one episode, but those episodes stood out. For me, in the streaming era of Trek, not a lot of them stood out. The ones that I talked about did, which again, with Picard, it's an overarch. Each season had its overarching, had a story arc. Discovery, each season, story arc. Lower Decks, Prodigy was probably the one that lasted the longest. I think they had 26 episodes per season, I believe, or had quite a few. So Prodigy was close to the original. But before anybody brings up Strange New Worlds, as I talked about in the last episode or last video, for the life of me, I couldn't think of a single antagonist that stood out. I tried. We were only at 3 seasons as of this recording. Season 4 hasn't come out yet. I tried to think of a single antagonist that stood out that I could put on. But I was already, again, by the time I got to the streaming era, I was already approaching 70. And I was very much like, I have to limit it. Some of these stood out. I was like, I remembered the names and remembered like, oh, yep, I remember you. Strange New Worlds, didn't have any. So if you have any recommendations or anyone to talk about in Strange New Worlds, by all means, please, in the comments, let me know. I would like to hear your feedback on the streaming era of Trek and what your thoughts are on it. Again, I know my friends are going to hate me for suggesting any one of these guys, any one from Lower Decks. It should belong in above C tier. But hey, again, I loved Lower Decks, and Prodigy, again, the animated Treks were wonderful. So yeah, folks, again, this video ran rather long, but I sincerely hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it entertaining. Again, that is my only goal with these videos, is to be entertainment. They're for entertainment purposes only. Check out my other tier lists. I did a uniform tier list and I did a series tier list, which started this whole ball. So check it out. Check out when I go live. If you subscribe, ring the bell. You'll be notified when I go live 3 days a week. So, folks, I hope to see you there. And as we say, I shall see you all next cycle. This is Zayun, out.